Denny Mayer is one of the biggest names in the food business. His restaurants and chefs have won a collective 25 James Beard Awards. But when we sat down to talk about his global success, Mayer talks less about food and more about his other secret ingredient.
Okay.
Every year after Thanksgiving, an overnight team at Denny Mayer's Gramercy Tavern transforms the restaurant for the holidays.
Right out, right there.
Just like millions of people will do in their own homes. It's a small part of Mayer's bigger plan to make going out a little like staying in.
A great restaurant is one that just makes you feel like you're not sure whether you went out or you came home, and confuses you. And if it can do both of those things at the same time, you're hooked.
That's why Mayer believes hospitality is key. And so far, that philosophy has worked out pretty well for him. Beginning in 1985 with the famous Union Square Cafe, the 55-year-old restaurateur has built an empire of nearly 50 properties. His Shake Shack chain has dozens of outposts from New York to Dubai. The New York Times Magazine calls him the greatest restaurateur Manhattan has ever seen.
How many years has she been doing the decor?
We met Mayer at Gramercy Tavern, the second place he ever opened, and the place he once swore he never would.
Well, I had watched my own father twice go bankrupt by the time I was 21 years old. And I'll never forget, that just made such a lasting impact. And I think incorrectly, in retrospect, I associated his bankruptcies with expansion. And it took me a lot of years and self-discovery to realize, number one, I'm not my dad, but number two, it wasn't expansion that made him go bankrupt. It was the absence of surrounding himself with people who could do things even better than he could do them.
How did you discover that, though? When did you realize that?
I think I finally realized that upon opening Gramercy Tavern, but it took a couple of years, and it took some really good, hard work internally, and it was those days where we really learned the power of hospitality.
Eventually, they mastered it. Then they monetized. Call it the Mayer touch. From juice bars to airport food, he can turn just about anything to gold. Companies around the world clamor for his business advice.
What do you think it is about what you've done with restaurants that makes Fortune 500 companies want to talk to you? What can you tell them?
Whoever you are, whatever business you're running, we've all been commoditized. The internet has made it so that what we do really, really well, as soon as the word gets out that we do it well, someone's going to copy how we do it. But the one thing that cannot be copied is how we make people feel.
So what is the key then to great hospitality?
The first key is hiring people on your team for whom making people feel good is as or more important than how good they are at what they do.
So more important than how they do their job is how they make people feel.
Absolutely.
Even when it comes to the kitchen. Mike Anthony is Gramercy Tavern's chef.
I think you can taste that in the food. When you walk in a restaurant where people are having fun, you know that immediately. You can see it and you can taste it.
Gramercy Tavern will turn 20 next year. To celebrate, they've released their first ever cookbook. 2 decades in the making, Mayer says it was finally the right time.
What's the difference between becoming a sensation for a restaurant versus an institution?
I think like any other business, it's take the long view and realize that if you're hot today, no matter what your business, you're going to be cold tomorrow. Gramercy Tavern appeared on the cover of New York Magazine the day we opened, and it was 5 deep at the bar with people who were not necessarily here to dine. They just wanted to kind of sniff out the hot new restaurant. And we had to take steps actually to cool things down, because that's not what we ever wanted to be. But in the long run, it's about having relationships with people. It's about having regulars. It's about, it's basically, restaurants are a bigger version of being Norm on Cheers. You just want to be the place where everybody knows your name.
Nice. He's got this new cookbook called the Gramercy Tavern Cookbook. It's on sale now. He rarely writes cookbooks. He wrote a book called Setting the Table, which I know.
Remember that.
One of my favorite, I think, great book. No matter what business you're in, the lessons in that book are tremendous.
My husband, who's a restaurateur, they encourage all their managers to read that book. I mean, he's really a master at what he does and a good guy.
Can we say the food's good too?
Absolutely.
Yeah, the food is
bad.
places
Not
are
too bad.
fantastic. That was
Yeah.
nice.